In 42 hours and 44 minutes, Will rode 237 miles and climbed more than 37,000 feet.
Started hurrying along, caught my wheel in a rock ledge as I'm descending down, and it kind of was like the front stopped and I'm up high, and so it just kind of catapulted me over.
Real-world ethics, training, racing, and figuring out how to balance it all with life's demands. This is Low Angle Adventures. Will Stinger, welcome to Low Angle Adventures.
Thanks.
You bet. I'm glad you're here. So Will is a local physician with 4 kids. He's 45 years old, and he is a 2-time winner of one of our biggest local events called the Boise Trails Challenge. Last year, and yes. So 2023 and 2024.
Yes.
The event happens in June, and I just want to run our viewers through some of the numbers, which are absolutely outrageous. So in 42 hours and 44 minutes, Will rode 237 miles and climbed more than 37,000 feet.
Yeah.
I wanted to get that right out of the way in the beginning because the numbers are so ridiculous. But now I want you to tell everybody what the event is and how it works.
You have 177 miles of trail, and you got to figure out how to check the boxes for all of them. And you map it all out, figure out where you're going to go, trailhead to trailhead, and get every trail checked off. So
a big part of the challenge is figuring out what order you're going to do them in. And some of them are directional, right? So that's part of it.
Yeah.
And some of them you can ride between, but you don't have to.
Yeah.
Some of them you can drive, makes more sense to drive between. And so it seems to me that a big part of this was organizing the structure of how you're going to ride it.
Yeah. I heard about it for the first time in 2022 and registered. And over the course of 2 weeks, rode every trail. I have a couple of friends who've done it a bunch of times. They gave me some maps. Oh, here's some maps. Here's how we do it. Okay. And I broke those into chunks, and over the course of a couple of weeks, went out and rode it all. And then 2023 rolled around, and I said, oh, I think I want to try to do this faster. And initially I just thought, well, I'm going to try to do it over the course of a weekend just because then it doesn't run into work issues. It started on a Thursday night. So I had Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I thought, well, I'll try to check all this off. And then friends said, well, if you do it in 48 hours, that'd be really fast. And I don't know if I can do that. And then as I talked more, I thought about it. Oh, I think I'm going to try to do that. Mm-hmm. So then started planning. Like, oh, okay, how am I going to do it? And got really serious about looking at each map. Where am I going to ride? What order am I going to ride it in? What do I want to be riding in the dark? What do I want to be riding in the daylight? And just kind of broke it down like that.
Okay.
Led to, I ended up finishing in 47 hours and I think 50-ish minutes, 40 minutes, something like that. I can't remember, in 2023.
Okay.
It was enough, but I won the event. But then somebody said, oh, well, there was a record that was 46 hours. Oh, okay. Well, I could probably do that. Wasn't sure. I was wrecked after 2023. I had lost all feeling in some of my fingers. I'd lost the feeling in my big toes. I could hardly walk. Both Achilles tendons hurt. Mm-hmm. I wasn't sure I was doing this again. My wife said, you probably shouldn't do that again. I think you're going to end up in trouble. Okay. But sickness takes a hold. However, said, I want that record.
Yep.
And that's what came down to. So then I had to decide, well, is it mathematically possible? I wasn't sure. I tried to think of a few things. Where did I waste time? What could I do better? And that led to me sitting down with a spreadsheet, and I just started mapping things out. Like, okay, I didn't think I was going to be in any better shape. I didn't think I could actually ride any faster.
Sure.
So I thought, okay, everything went from a riding standpoint last year went pretty well. I didn't think I could pedal any faster than I had. Mm-hmm. So that part, I kind of did my math as being fairly fixed.
Okay.
And I took my time from the prior year for each segment. So, okay, it took me 4 hours to ride this segment last year. I'll fill that in. Okay, from that segment to the next segment, how long will it take me to drive there? And I Google mapped it, 10 minutes. I put 10 minutes on. Well, once I get there, how long does it take me to refill a bottle, fill my Camelback, eat a little bit of food?
Mm-hmm.
And I could do that in 5 minutes. I put that on there. And I just went down segment by segment like that and then see what did it come to. And then the number I landed on was 41 hours and 39 minutes. So I had that as, okay, mathematically, if I think everything goes perfect, that's the number.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, that seems like a good segue to just talk about how it went this year. Tell me how it went.
Oh, I think overall it went well.
Okay.
So I had 41 hours and 39 minutes as my number. Finished in 42 hours and 44 minutes. In the back of my head all along, I thought, well, I'm not sure I can even do that. So if I hit 44, that'd be really good.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't sure what the number was. I knew I'd be happy if I just got below that 46 number, but I wanted to be well below. I thought I could do well below, but I wasn't sure.
Okay. So walk us through some of the highlights. Tell me what happened from the beginning. What time did you start?
The challenge officially starts at 12:01.
Okay.
Or it may even be 12 and 1 second. I can't.
A.M.
12 a.m. and 1 second,
Low
I think,
noon.
is when you're, low noon. The middle of the night, however you want to look at it.
Yeah.
But that's when you're officially allowed to start recording on your Strava.
Okay.
And that's the time starts from that moment. And that's my favorite part. So I actually kind of like it's silent, it's quiet, it's cool. June in Idaho is hot.
Could be hot, yeah.
So the weather was predicted to be fairly warm. And, so getting some of the big climbs out in the dark is nice. And that middle of the night part is you're just riding alone in the dark with headlamps, but you can look around all through the foothills and pick up little dots, little headlights. Other
There's
people
other
are
people
out there
doing it.
Other people are out there doing it too.
But you have no idea who's really serious.
Yeah, you have no idea who's really serious. You have no idea how fast any of these people are going. Don't know who has shown up.
Yeah.
Some people register under like aliases or there's goofy names. Like,
Yeah.
they just register with whatever their Strava name is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if this is a fast guy or not.
Uh-huh.
So it's a really interesting part of this race. You don't know who you're racing.
Yeah. That's
or,
cool.
Or how well they're doing.
And everybody has a different finish line.
Yeah. Everybody's starting and finishing in different places.
Yeah.
This year there was a lady there sitting in the same I started at what's called Miller Gulch Trailhead. There was a lady there waiting to start too. She followed me up the mountain.
Okay.
The first section that I do includes a great big climb, local trail called Hard Guy. And I really like that. Just riding in the dark, climbing up the mountain.
2,500 feet or something.
Yeah,
out of the
it's
gate,
in that
right?
ballpark, 2,500.
And that's just the
3,000.
trail portion. But then you've got the road above that. Do you keep? I don't remember.
You right as you get to the road, the segment's complete. You turn around and
back down.
For this case, people do that differently. Some people go up that, and then they kind of go up the road and drop down Shingle Creek.
Depending on what
it just depends on how you map it out. Sure. The way I mapped it out, the way that has worked for me, I just turn around, come back down on that.
Okay.
So that's kind of how you end up riding further than.
Right.
You got 177 miles you got to check off, but you got to get from place to place, trail to trail. They don't all link up. Mm-hmm. It's not just 177 miles that are mapped out as a continuous loop.
No.
So that's the spot I backtrack.
How do you determine whether you're going to ride extra and you think that's obviously the faster way to do it, or you're going to drive? I mean, what kept you from having someone at the top of Hard Guy and to drive you down, the ridge road to the next stop? Was that just didn't make sense logistically?
It didn't make sense logistically. A few different things. In the middle of the night, I didn't want to ask anybody to get out of bed and drive me around in the middle of the night.
Sure.
So there's part of that. Just looking at the time, how I wanted to map things out and break into the segments I thought made the most sense, most efficient. At that spot particularly, it just made sense to turn around, go back down,
okay,
and loop back to my truck.
Okay. I think I rode with you. Let's see here. You'd started at midnight. And I think I met you the next morning. You were still fresh as a daisy when I saw you. Maybe
It was about 8 a.m.
it was about 8. Yeah, I don't remember. And we rode not very much, 15 miles together or something.
Nice.
But you were looking good when I saw you. We can put some footage of that in here. Tell me what segments we were on. We were on East Side, which isn't going to mean much to people who don't know Boise Trails. But how far in were you, I guess, is what matters. How many miles and how much vert when I rode with you?
That would have been about 10,000 vert in 10 or 11.
Okay. You've been riding for 8 hours, 8 to 9 hours. And how many miles about?
So that would have been about 60 miles.
Okay.
When we met.
All right.
So 50 probably.
Okay. So I saw you for an hour and a half. We went up to the ski area, Bogus Basin. You lubed your chain, you took some food, and then you were off for the trail system that's around our ski area, right?
Yeah.
Bogus. Let's go back a little bit to the ridiculous level of preparation you went into, because right before this, we turned on the cameras, you were telling me about you actually have a live spreadsheet, so that you got a guy build the spreadsheet. Tell our viewers how that works.
Well, so I put together this spreadsheet of, okay, here's my start time. So it says 0001. I knew this first segment. I thought I'll do it in about 4 hours and 19 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So that means I finish at 4:20. Then I did the Google Maps of, okay, how long will it take me to drive from this trailhead to the next trailhead? Put that in as 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And I built in my prep time. Okay, I think it'll take me 15 minutes. And so that means I start then at 4:45 at the next trailhead.
Sure.
Once I'd kind of built this and I'd sent that out to my crew and the people who were helping me, one of them said, hey, I can make this work better. Okay. He worked a little magic. Eric Denning, friend of mine, he made it so everything updated live. And then
That's
if
fantastic.
the change, so once you put in, so after, instead of taking 4 hours and 19 minutes to ride that segment, it took me 4 hours and 8 minutes. So then you just plug that in and it recalculates all the math all the way down.
So you get a new predicted finish time.
New predicted finish time all the way down from that point.
And when I presume once that calculation is done, that's shared with you by your crew on the next time you see them.
It didn't change a lot for me.
Okay.
So either way, I was just going to see them when I ran into them to some degree. They were all. This was getting updated behind the scenes while I was riding. Eric was sitting at home. My Strava would pop up. And he'd say, oh, it took him 4 hours and 8 minutes. He'd plug that in. And this was all shared to a Google Drive. So my crew then could pull it up and say, oh, okay, he said he was going to be here at 4:45, but now we need to be there at 4:35.
Mm-hmm.
And throughout the day, that just updated. I kind of self-supported for the first 8 hours. I met my wife for the first time 8 hours in, but so that was the first time it kind of mattered.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That's pretty cool. The level of preparation for this thing is, I think, maybe the most amazing part for me. The physical part is also incredible, obviously. But I think what people need to really realize here is that creating this is a big part of what's given you success and victory twice in this event.
I had a friend last year, right afterwards, he messaged, he said, what would it take to go faster? And I said, well, I'd need a crew, I need this. He said, okay, well, next year, hit me up.
Awesome.
So a month before, I said, hey, were you serious about that? He said, heck yeah, I am. He said, I'll spend all night drinking Red Bull and eating Slim Jims. And so that's my friend Dave Warren. And so he had to work most that first day. So he met me at what would have been about 16 hours in, somewhere in there. Then he met, and then he was with me for the next 30-ish hours.
Okay, remind me, this started on a Thursday night?
It was this time. It
Friday
was a
morning?
Wednesday.
It was a Wednesday?
If I remember right, it was a Wednesday night into a
Okay.
Thursday morning.
So you were done.
You
were done Saturday morning.
Finished
Is that right?
basically Friday night.
Friday night. Okay.
Yeah.
And I remember you calling me and saying, "Hey, can you join for this segment?" And I was like, "Oh, I've got an 8-hour race with some friends that weekend, and I'm pretty committed to those guys, so I couldn't do it," which was a bummer because I would have done something similar, I think, if I didn't have that commitment
Yeah.
that week. I enjoyed the small amount of time we did get to be out there together.
Well, yeah, I reached out to a couple of different people for various things, because I just being able to have some people to ride with me at various points. But I knew it had to be people that wouldn't slow me down.
Right.
It also had to be people that kind of there was an understanding. If you have a mechanical, I'm leaving you.
Oh, of course.
You're on your own.
Yeah.
So it had to be people that I knew could take care of themselves. Had to be people that I knew were going to be riders.
Right.
And so it left me with this list of I had a short list of who am I can I bring in there. And no offense to anyone, but I was like, I was going for this record. You get it flat, I'm just leaving.
Yeah.
So you're on your own.
Well, and obviously you aren't pinning it out there, but
No.
to make this happen, you can't stop.
Right.
Right. You just can't spend 20 minutes fixing somebody else's flat tire if you're serious about this, and you've got a lot of investment in it at this point. So, okay, so give me some highlights of the first 24 hours. I know at some point you had a crash. I know you had some company, right? You had people join you. Give me some other highlights.
The highlight that I like to highlight the most is the low light.
Okay. What's it like?
So somewhere around, about 3 p.m., 4 p.m. on day one. So you're now, whatever, the 17, 18 hours in, whatever that math works out to. I've been riding. At that point, I've got somewhere around 20,000 vertical that I've done already. And you descend down Dry Creek. Long descent.
Typical. I'll describe it because people should know. Dry Creek is a pretty typical Idaho creek trail, right? Bushes on both sides of the creek. Trail crosses the creek. That one maybe 6 or 7 or 8 times. So your drivetrain's trash at the end of that segment, and so are your feet probably. Yeah. Right. Regardless, and
they built some new bridges this year. There's more bridges now.
Yeah, but bridges are like, do you want to ride one of those bridges when you're in this mode? I don't know.
Yes.
Half of them I don't touch, so I don't know. I don't know what you did there, but the trail it's fairly demanding. There's places that are fast. There's places that are rocky, especially in the beginning. And it's 2,000, 2,500 feet of descending.
Somewhere around that.
Yeah.
It's steep and loose. And I did... So in 2022, I did all that segment as a big unsupported 13-hour loop, and kind of ended with down that. And by the time I got to my truck, I was wet, I was cold. The battery on every single Garmin that I had died because I was recording this on 3 different devices because I wanted to make sure you don't lose anything. And I had planned on riding more that day, and everything's dead. I'm dead. My feet are soaked. My hands are trashed from trying to descend this. So I guess I'm done. 2023, I'd put more socks in the truck, figured out my Garmin's, how to keep things charged longer, borrowed an extra Garmin, bought a new one that had a longer battery life, did a few things so I could keep going, got my 48-hour time. Still I can remember descending Dry Creek and just thinking, I can't believe how bad my arms hurt. It's just so much pump from trying to keep speed under control down that. So this year I upgraded to a new 4-piston front caliper. Okay. So
we'll talk more about your bike in just a minute.
So that was a piece. So descending Dry Creek wasn't quite as bad, a little less arm fatigue. But then, so you descend down that. It's now getting hot. It's 4:00 in the afternoon. And you got to turn and climb 2,500 feet back up Shingle Creek.
Oh,
so
this is just the next drainage.
Just
over.
You just kind of turn the corner and go up the next drainage, and just that's the piece. It's I've already climbed 20,000 vertical feet. There's a sign right there, and it's right at that point. It could either keep going straight to the truck, or you turn left and start climbing again. And most of Shingle Creek is so steep that at the pace I'm able to ride this at, I just end up pushing my bike up a lot of it. If I just go out and go to ride Shingle Creek, I can ride to the top of Shingle Creek.
Right. But there are a few places, even when you're fresh,
Even
that
when you're
like,
fresh, there's some
terrible.
deep
Like where
pitches.
you've got to make like, if you're me, you got to make like 350 watts for 30 seconds. That's a lot for me.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
just to stay on your bike, and that's in your 52.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
So
there's spots where it's like I'm at 400 watts just trying to keep moving.
right.
And one of the biggest pieces I figured out is you just can't do that.
Sure.
Every time you try to do that, you're just, it's so many matches gone.
Mm.
So every time I kind of look down, I'm like, well, that is too much power.
Mm-hmm.
I just ease off, get off the bike, and push it up the hill.
Okay.
So that's the highlight. Turn that left turn up Shingle Creek.
That's the crux for you.
Because that moment, it's like, okay,
All right.
this is rough. And I spend the whole time climbing it just thinking, there is no way I could be going any slower.
Well, you had a crash. So let's talk about
Yeah.
where the crash happened. I mean, you had several, but you had one that really actually mattered.
I had one that mattered.
So talk about that.
That was
when are we in the in the 42
that
hours?
was 28 hours in.
Okay.
20, yeah. Sun was coming up. I was feeling okay. Not great, but okay. Started pedaling up. I got partway up Table Rock. Realized I forgot to start my backup Garmin. I was like, oh, I didn't start my backup. Started my backup Garmin. So I've now missed a mile of climbing on my backup Garmin. Rode a little further, realized I never started my primary one.
Ugh.
Now I was like, now I do have a problem that I have to repeat that mile section.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm either going to have to go back down at some point, or try and decide how I do this. So I kept going, went out, finished the section I was on. Then I got sick to my stomach. I was kind of, I'm not feeling so great all of a sudden. So I start hurrying. It's like, well, if I get back down to the truck, there's a restroom there. Started hurrying along, caught my wheel in a rock ledge as I'm descending down, and it kind of was like the front stopped and I'm up high, and so it just kind of catapulted me over, just splattered on the ground, mostly just head hit. There's really my knee hit and my head hit, mm-hmm. and it put the slightest little touch of dirt on my nose, smashed my helmet, and smashed my teeth and lips. So it was.
We'll put a picture of it in here if you don't mind.
I
think
we have a picture. Do I have it? Okay. All right.
It's up to you.
So yeah, no, it's fine. So I have some implants in the front of my mouth from a prior bike accident. So all of my front teeth are fake. Five front teeth are fake.
Uh-huh.
It bent two of those way back and then broke a crown off of one of them that's only halfway fake.
Okay.
And I didn't realize the crown was gone until later. I probably would have dug around in the dirt looking for it, but. But so I'm bleeding, my knee hurt, and I'm laying there. I mean, I'm seeing stars.
Sure.
I hit my head hard enough. I'm like, oh shoot, I'm got to put myself on concussion protocol here. This isn't good. I kind of for a second I thought, is this over?
With 16 hours to go.
Yeah, like the majority of the climbing's done, a lot of the work's done, but there's still a ton of riding to go.
Yeah.
Until you'd asked me to do some of this, I hadn't even looked at the fact that it works out that in the first 24 hours, I'd ridden about 24,000 vertical. Mm-hmm. And then left after that was only around 12 or something. So it's like way more vertical. And really with the math works out, really what I consider the day one riding was like 28,000 vertical with only 8,000 left after that. So but there's still a lot of miles to go.
Yeah.
And
so you're a mess. You're a bloody mess.
What am I going to do? I tried calling my crew. He was missing. His phone wasn't working at the moment, or he wasn't getting service from me. He had just driven to where he was supposed to meet me, so had left the parking lot that I was just riding back to. Mm-hmm. Got back down to the parking lot, pulled some baby wipes out of my back pocket, kind of cleaned up a little bit, went to the restroom, and got back on and made sure Garmin was running, because it had been about the mile of what I consider about the least favorite mile on the whole challenge almost. Sure. Just steep, rocky. And so repeating that, just kind of a little punch in the gut. Mm-hmm. But I got back on, sun's coming up, started to warm up, started to feel better.
Okay. Bring us through to the finish.
So then, my friend Eric, who'd been behind the scenes updating the live live spreadsheet and keeping everything running kind of in the background. He then met me at Polecat Trailhead. And Avamore is where the kind of the final segment.
Where it's hotter than anywhere else, probably.
So by that point, I think 6 o'clock. It was right around that just enough things are shadowing, and riding up Spring Creek is kind of shaded, and you're along the creek, so it didn't seem as bad. But I'd been filling water bottles in between, quickly between all these various trailheads. A lot of those were just little short segments. Siemens Gulch took 30 minutes to ride. Mm-hmm. At Eagle Bike Park was 45 minutes to ride. So not long rides. I just got to get some water in a bottle, get on the bike, finish it, knock it out, move to the next thing. And in between this, then because I had someone driving me this year, which was big. Then I could get a gel in, try to eat a few fruit snacks, things like that. Just relax. Uploading my rides, getting those. So they were updating, and it just gave me a little mental break instead of driving myself like I had the prior year. Mm-hmm. And we got to Avamore, and I just kind of said to Eric, I said, I'm just going. He said, okay, So I jumped out because he's trying to check off trails too for him. Mm-hmm. And so, he was planning on riding it as well, rather than just trying to keep up with me. He's checking boxes too. Mm-hmm. And I said, as soon as I get out, I'm going. Filled my bottle, started the Garmin, and just raced.
At this point you're on record.
At this
pace.
point now, I know I'm on record pace. I know really it doesn't matter what happens, I'm going to get the record. But I'd kind of done some rough math that that about an hour and 15 minutes, and if I did it, then my time was going to start with a 42 instead of a 43.
I see.
That so I've kind of done the math. Is okay if I can knock this out in under an hour and 15 minutes. I'm getting a 42 in front of that.
Putting the record out of sight.
Yeah. So whatever that took, and so I'd budgeted an hour and 20 for that segment. It took me an hour and 1 minute, and got it done a little quicker.
So you finished at Avamore?
Finished at Avamore.
Which is a trail system that's 10 minutes north of where we are now.
Yeah.
At Eagle, which is north of Boise. Any sense of relief at the end there, or was it just anticlimactic?
No, there was relief. It was fun. It was just fun. Yeah. My wife had organized a small group of friends were waiting at the finish line for me.
Awesome.
Some of the people who'd ridden with me along the way were all there.
Sure.
She had a root beer waiting. That's what I wanted. They had a chair sitting there waiting. so it was fun.
Great.
And I appreciated that they'd all done that.
Let's talk about fueling. What did you use and how did it go? What would you change if you had to do it again? Let's do that in just a few minutes.
Okay. My go-to for years for just on the bike nutrition is custom blend from Infinit Nutrition. Okay. I have 2 different blends I use, kind of a long fuel and a short fuel version, just slower burning, more concentrated that I use for long events, and a quicker version for shorter, more intense racing.
You're looking at a calorie target per hour or carbs per hour?
Typically try to be at least 100 grams of carbs an hour.
Okay.
And
what do you weigh?
140 pounds.
Okay.
I race
no joke.
140.
Yeah.
So I can comfortably do 90 to 110 most of the time.
Okay.
And
what else?
So that's kind of my on the bike mixed in bottles, and then and that works out to 60 to 70 grams of carbs per hour.
Okay.
And then I try to add on top of that with SIS gels. I do really well with those. Have for years.
Caffeine or no?
No caffeine.
Okay.
I prefer the Tutti Frutti flavor.
Okay.
It's just enough. It's not quite as like sugary sweet. It's got just enough like tartness to it that it just goes down a little bit better than some of the other flavors for me. And so that's kind of my main stuff. But for this, because it's so slow and so long, the prior year I did some of the old fashioned donuts, the Franz just in the box, the cheap ones. My wife makes the Allen Lim rice cake recipe, and I take those with me and try to eat those.
You use that as more of a
Just
like a reward food, something that's not liquid.
Just something's not liquid, something that just settles in the stomach a little better, and just solid. The prior year that had worked really well for me. That I just always kept something like that in my Camelback or in the truck in between sections. I'd eat some of that too, in addition to the gel stuff, gels or mix. And this year I struggled with that. It was not sitting right with me. It just was not going down. Where the year before, I also did pizza. I had a cold pizza from Garbanzo's and just pull a piece out, try to eat on that. And I just couldn't get it down as well this year. It was not going down. My body wasn't processing it as well. I had Giardia in April.
Oh.
Or end of March.
Oh.
I went to Costa Rica, came home with Giardia. Wow. And that can mess up your carb metabolism, supposedly up to even for years.
Wow.
And I actually think I was still paying a price on some of that.
Oh, okay.
I was not metabolizing things in quite the same way. And that seems to have all ended. Good. But I think that was part of it. That's a theory, one of my theories. Otherwise, I don't know. I just was trying to do too much, but it seemed like it was all the same stuff I'd used the year before, and I'd just been able to. The year before, it seemed like I could just pour down, eat anything I wanted because it's not intense. Your pace is enough slower that I just had an alarm every hour. I'm like, oh, it's been an hour. I'd stop, pull out rice cake, eat it, and this year when I tried doing that, it just was not working.
Talk to me a little bit more about the pacing. You're primarily zone 2, I presume, for this?
This all ends up low zone 2.
Low zone 2. So what's that workout? What's that for you heart rate and power-wise?
Power-wise, FTP is usually around 275 watts. Okay. Just a little over 4 watts per kilo. Yep. So a lot of times I'm climbing under 200 watts, like just trying to 150, 160 watts uphill, just trying to just keep that spinning, coasting downhill. Just try to keep it moving at a slow enough speed that like I can do this forever. If I look at the intensity factor of almost every ride, it's like 0.55, 0.6. Yeah. So I'm just on that low end.
Okay. Let's go through briefly how you prepared for this physically. What kind of training did you do? Any specific things? Are you doing intervals? Or, I mean, it doesn't seem like a thing you'd need intensity for, but you tell me.
Well, I still try to just go in with as much fitness as I can.
So what kind of volume? Let's start with volume. Yeah, okay. How much volume per week?
So I typically really start getting serious training every year, December 15th to January 1st. Somewhere around there. It's kind of when my go time. From that point on, until my kids get out of school, I can usually figure out how to fit in 7 to 8 hours a week. Okay. Almost always just done at 5 to 6 a.m. because I got to be done by 7 a.m. to get kids ready for school, get out the door. Then I shower, get ready for work. Okay. With then a little extra time on a Friday or Saturday. And excuse me, that comes to 6 to 8 hours a week typically. Okay. Once my kids get out of school, then I can push longer because I don't, so I can then instead of riding from 5 to 6:30, I can ride from 5 to 7 or 7:30. And I try to bring that volume up into the 10 to 11 hour range. Mm-hmm. But it still seems like that's about all I can ever fit in a week and still work and.
So that's not happening until kids get out of school here around like late May, third 1st. Week of May.
Yeah, late May. Sorry, no,
maybe the second week for us. We're a little different.
Yeah, we're typically around May 20th.
Okay, yeah. So that's like a month before the trail challenge. Yep. You get about 3 weeks of real training time.
Yeah, so I just through that winter and that 6 to 8 hours a week, that is almost always VO2 max intervals on Mondays. Endurance work on kind of Tuesday, Wednesday, threshold or over unders, or sometimes more VO2 depending on the day on Thursdays, and then more endurance. So typically 2 intense days a week and endurance in between.
Interesting.
Somewhat polarized looking, but but walk the line between polarized and pyramidal if you were to map it out.
Okay. You at 45, you're still able to do 2 intense days a week. You're defining intensity as VO2 max and threshold.
Kind of anything kind of threshold or above.
Okay. Because I can't typically pull that off.
Okay.
So it's interesting to hear.
Until a few years ago, I was doing 3 a week.
Yeah.
Typically every Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Huh.
And I haven't, just for various reasons, I haven't tried to see if I could do it still.
Uh-huh.
But 2 days a week has been working fairly well. And I'm still hitting essentially the same numbers that I always have. So.
Yeah. All right. That's interesting. All right. Let me look at my cheat sheet here. We got a couple topics left. Let's talk about your bike. We can't ignore that. Tell me, this is the bike you rode. This is not the bike you're currently riding, but this is the bike you rode. It's an Epic 7 generation Pro.
2021. Specialized Epic 7 Pro.
Okay.
I had different wheels and tires on it for the challenge.
Okay.
Different cranks. Almost everything's been changed since the challenge. The frame's the same.
Sure.
But the dropper is the same. Epic 7 with the brain front and rear. I rode Specialized Roval control wheels with 2.4-inch Maxxis Recon Race tires front and rear. Same cassette. And just a different crankset and power meter. I moved those to a new bike.
You changed the chain ring?
Oh, I do. Yeah, I run a 32 tooth most of the time. For BTC, I switched to a 30.
Just to get that granny.
Just so I can
stay on a little more.
Yeah, last year I had the 30 and just a 50 tooth cassette. This year I had the 30 and a 52 tooth cassette. So I kind of
a little easier gear.
And it definitely made a difference.
Okay.
It just even having that 52.
Bike worked well?
Bike works great. I still think this is one of the best XC bikes on the market, despite the fact that I've upgraded to a new one since then.
Mm-hmm.
I just got another Epic. So, overall, I'm a believer. But
me too. And this bike, as you rode it in the trail challenge, we just weighed it with a little slightly heavier wheels at 24.7 or so. It's probably 24 and a half before. Okay.
Yeah, I weighed it at my shop at 24 and a half.
Okay.
Pretty sure right on.
All right. Well, last topic. One of the themes of this channel is life balance and talking to people in our phase of life about how they do these amazing things without getting divorced, right? That being able to have the high level of fitness you have, maintain the career that you maintain, and be with your family in a way that matters. That's really important. All of those things require compromise. I know personally, I don't feel like I ever get them all quite right. And I think maybe that's how you know when you're getting them quite right. But tell me how you do that, how you manage between 8 and 11 hours a week on the bike. You're a physician. That's a demanding career that requires a lot of time. And you've got 4 kids.
Yeah. First off, my wife's pretty amazing and lets me do all this and lets me get away with a lot.
So's mine.
If I'll back up a little bit, some of the training or whatever. I pre-rode probably 60% of the course this year. Mm-hmm. That was new because I wanted to have every turn memorized. I wanted to make sure my maps were dialed. So that was a lot of the training pieces. And so so that means coming home from work and saying, hey, I'm going to run to Siemens Gulch and Eagle Bike Park. Can I? Okay, yeah. Knock out something like that. Just so I knew my maps are right on my Garmin. Everything's working well. Mm-hmm. I typically don't work Fridays. So that helps.
Okay.
I have a Monday through Thursday work schedule most of the time.
Okay.
And so it gives me Friday and Saturday. Typically I'll spend Sunday home with the family at church, but generally never ride on a Sunday.
Okay.
So train or ride 6 days a week. Sundays are off. Family time. On those Fridays and Saturdays, it makes it so I can fit in extra stuff there. And then most of my training happens before family gets up. That's how I've done it for years.
Mm-hmm.
I'm probably 8 years into mornings on a trainer.
Sure.
At somewhere between 5 and 7 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
That's when a lot of the training happens.
Okay.
So that knocks out that piece. All of my structure comes on a trainer, or sometimes on a road bike with some friends, early morning rides, even though, but generally on the trainer. So I fit in a lot of that. Then just trying to get those longer rides on Fridays and Saturdays, or get out onto the trails on Fridays and Saturdays, but making sure that I'm, sometimes I take my kids with me.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the pre-riding I did with my son has gotten a lot faster this year, so he came with me. There were some pieces like that.
Okay.
Of just trying to make sure I got the kids out there when I can and do that piece.
Talk to me about, and we'll wrap it up after this, what your sleep target is and what your actual sleep is. Like how much are you trying to get and how much you get?
I try to get 8 hours.
Okay.
With the caveat that 7 nights a month I'm on call. And so I just finished, today's my 9th straight day at work, because I was on call all weekend. And so tomorrow, day 10, I've still got to get through that. And then I'm finally off for a weekend again. But I have been really good over the last few years of being in bed by 9 so that I can get up at 5. Okay. And I get my 8 hours in. And I'm not always asleep at 9, but I'm in bed winding down by 9.
Okay.
And sometimes I'm asleep at 9.
Okay.
So I end up being fairly strict about that, because I do often lose 5 to 7 nights of sleep a month. So on the nights that I do get to sleep, I try to be pretty good with that. Okay. I'm super strict with sleep hygiene. If the room is dark, the room is cold, I sleep with earplugs sometimes. Mm-hmm. Anything I can to just make sure that when I'm out, I'm out. It's
crucial. And the older we get, the more crucial it is.
Yeah.
Okay. That was awesome. That was an absolutely amazing feat. Thank you for all your time talking about it. I appreciate it. I think we'll wrap it up there.
Okay.
Take care, Will.
Yeah.
All right. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more like it, please subscribe by hitting the button in the bottom right corner of the screen. Check out our other videos as well. Thanks for watching. Catch you next time.